Good afternoon, everyone. Today marks 24 years since September 11th, 2001. On this day, we pause to honor and remember the lives lost at the Pentagon, aboard the flights, and at Ground Zero. We remember the families who continue to carry that loss and the first responders and service members who gave everything in service and sacrifice. Today is not just a moment of reflection, but it's also a reminder of resilience, courage, and unity in the face of an unimaginable tragedy. In this episode, I'll be sharing my own story of being at the Pentagon on that particular day, what I experienced and what I learned, and how those moments, continue to shape my life and my leadership. First thing I remember is I was talking to this lady who used to go at our church, and she called me. She said, "Carla, a plane hit the World Trade Center." I said, "That must have been a mistake." She said, "No, it hit the World Trade Center." I said, "Are you serious?" She said, "Yeah, my boss's wife works at the World Trade." I said, "Oh my gosh, let me know. I'm going to pray for her. Oh my goodness. Let me know." Hung up the phone from her. And at this time, I worked at the Pentagon. I worked for the Department of Navy. We called it Navy Budget. It was FMB3. So I said, "Well, I'm going to check this out on the TV." And I walked over to the congressional area, and there were a lot of guys in uniforms, a lot of lieutenants, lieutenant commanders. They were standing around and they were watching this. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is true." But around that time, another plane hit. I was shocked. Okay, there's silence among the military because they knew it was an attack. I'm thinking it was a mistake. And there was silence. Then one person said, "This was not a mistake." So I walked back to my seat and I said, "You know what? I need to go downstairs. I need to go to CVS. I need to get some knee highs." And I had my couple of dollars on my desk with my change. And right before I got up, I heard boom. My thought was, they're bombing us. Who they were, I have no idea. I just heard this loud boom like you would hear at the movie theater. And what is weird is everyone around me felt the building move. I never felt the building move. We were on the fourth floor in the C ring. So if you're familiar with the Pentagon, and I'm sure a lot of you are, you have the center court, you have the A ring, B, C, D, E. E are normally where the executives are, 3, 4 stars, so forth. Well, I was in the C ring, right next to the D ring. I never felt anything. Well, I thought they're bombing us. Who they were again, I have no idea. I got up. I said, "I'm out of here. I'm leaving for the day. I'm not staying around." I picked up my book bag. I picked up my purse. And as I walked around the corner, I saw my supervisor, because I'm going to tell him I'm out of here for today. And he looked at me. He walked out of his office with his arms closed. He turned to me, and all of a sudden, the section that's called FMB2, they ran towards us and they were yelling, "Another one's coming, another one's coming." I'm like, what are they talking about? They knocked him down. He knocked me down. Behind me was our legal secretary, Sandy. Her foot got caught in my backpack loop. We all go down. At that time, that particular section, out of fear, they started running. They were trampling over us. And I never had a moment in my life that I thought that I was going to die. That was the moment. I've never been trampled. And that moment, I just thought, okay, this is it. And the only thing I remember is I remember reaching out to a cubicle and I just said, "Jesus," because I just knew that was it. And I could feel their feet just going all over my body. But at the same time, I didn't say anything else because that was it. Well, after this group left, because they were going for the exit, our area was right next to the exit. I got my bags up and I started to run. And my supervisor, Jim, said, "Walk, don't run." So I slowed down. And as I approached the door, a commander opened the door and said, "Have you seen Wes?" Now, Wes was our senior executive. I was an FMB3. He was the senior executive. Okay, my mind is swirling. I was near death. I could care less. The first thought in my mind was, I don't care. Who cares about Wes? And he's still looking at me so calmly. I responded, no. He left, and I walked out. And as I'm going through, as I approach the hallway, I see a stream of people going towards the center section, call it the courtyard of the Pentagon. I see all these people. And then I see our deputy director, Mary Kay. I'm like, her eyes were just red with tears. But I looked down, she had no shoes on her feet. I thought, that's odd. But Mary Kay was in the section where it eventually fell down 30 minutes after the plane hit. And she was also known, I learned this from her husband, she was also known for kicking her shoes off during the meeting. But I just thought this was weird, very weird. She's walking with tears in her eyes, with nothing on her feet. And so I started to follow the crowd. I thought, oh, gosh. As I look back, I think, I hate following crowds. But I followed the crowd. And for some reason, I think we took the escalators downstairs, and I started walking out to the courtyard. Why would I walk out to the courtyard? If they're bombing us, they're going to hit us. But I saw the plane from Langley come, and he started to come down into the courtyard. I left. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. And then as I turned around, I don't know how I was able to walk into this particular area. But I saw this 4-star general. I mean, you could see him. 1, 2, 3, 4 stars on his shoulders. And he's walking. Now, this was an Army general. He's walking with a naval commander. That's odd. Why would Navy escort an Army general? Didn't make any sense to me, but I did learn from a supervisor who was a naval commander some time ago. He said, yeah, he confirmed. He said, yeah, that does happen. In certain cases, you will have a naval commander will be something like, for lack of a better term, a professional, a naval term, support, and actually an Army general. So I said, okay, my eyes were right. So as they're walking and the general's being escorted by the naval officer, I said, oh, he's going to be taken care of. I'm going to follow him. As I followed them, this door opened, and then it immediately shut. And I just blinked my eyes, just a natural blink. They disappeared. I'm looking because it's dark. I cannot find a door. I'm thinking, does the Pentagon have secret places? I have no idea. But I could not find them. So I said, I've got to get out of here. I turn around and I see other people, and everyone's going in different directions. And I finally see the light on this underground tunnel. I see this light that I know is going to lead out to the Pentagon parking lot. And I thought, what am I going to do? How am I going to get home? I don't know anything about this Pentagon area. I ride the subway, and then I get the subway back home, and I pick up my car in the parking lot. But I tell you, the Lord looked out for me, because who did I see? Remember, I mentioned Wes, our senior executive. I saw his secretary, Terry. All of a sudden, she was in the car. I said, Terry. She said, Carla, get in here. She was so frantic. I have no idea how she got out there. But she said, come in my car, Carla, come. And her emotions were up here. And I thought, you know what? I've got to switch my emotions, because that was a Tuesday. Terry was getting married on Saturday. So I thought, okay, I've got to calm down. This is a huge week for her. Excuse me, I've got to put a lozenge in my mouth. This was a huge week for her. So I decided to be upbeat. And Terry said, Carla, I can't believe what just happened. I said, yeah, Terry. I said, and I know you're getting married this weekend. And she said, yeah. She started to cry. I felt so bad. She said, what do you want me? Where do you want me to take you? And she's still up here. Pardon me. And I said, Terry, I said, can you take me to the blue line? I said, because I'm sure that they're not going to allow the yellow line to go over the water. Can you take me to the blue line subway station? She said, yeah. So I'm on my phone and I'm trying to contact family members. I'm contacting all these numbers. The cell phones were out. I thought it was just me. I didn't know it was the actual Washington metropolitan area. I said, Terry, can you take me to a payphone? Because I can't get through on my phone. She's like, use my phone, use my phone. Phones weren't working. So finally, we stop at this gas station and an old-fashioned payphone at the Shell station. Stand there, and I said, oh my goodness, I don't have enough quarters. And Terry is still like, take all the quarters, take all the quarters, take all the quarters I have. She's giving me quarters, and the quarters are dropping, and I'm picking them up and going. And then I'm trying to call, and it's not connected. And this is going on and on and on and on and on. And I'm starting to feel, that upbeat that I had for Terry. I'm starting to actually go down. And I said, I got to be able to reach my family and friends. But that's okay. Kicking another gear. And I'm still trying to get it connected. And then I think we had a few quarters left. And I said, I got to get this quarter in here. I got to be able to connect to someone. And then as I put one of the last few quarters in, I started to look at my hand. It is shaking just like this. And I felt like I was in a movie. I'm watching my hand. I'm like, what is going on with me? My hand is just shaking. So I grabbed my hand to steady it, to put the quarter in the payphone, reached up, and then I dialed the number. And the number that went through was my friend Yvonne. And I thought I was still calm, even though my hand was shaking hard. I thought I was still calm. The person who answered the phone, her name was Bonnie. I said, hello. I said, can I speak to Yvonne? No, let me be honest with you all. I said, can I speak to Yvonne? That's when I started to break down. And Bonnie said, is this Carlo? I said, yes. So I spoke to Yvonne. I told her I was okay, let people know, because her call was the only one that went through. So Terry and I get back into the car. Well, I got back into the car. I give Terry a hug because my heart was just bleeding because she was getting married on Saturday. She dropped me off at the Blue Line somewhere in Virginia. To this day, I have no idea. But before that, I saw this gentleman outside in his painter's uniform, all white. I don't know what they call it. And he's gently painting the outside of the home. And I'm thinking, does he not know that we were just bombed? But all was quiet. I shook it off. So when I arrived at the Blue Line subway station, I don't even think we had to swipe cards. I think they were just open. You didn't have to pay that day. Thankfully, a Blue Line train came up. I got on the train and I'm like, I'm settled. I'm calm. And then I see this lady who I would normally see. I didn't know her, but I remember her face that I would see in the hallways at the Pentagon. She was crying. She was bawling. Her friends were around her, comforting her. And I said, wow, I feel so bad for her. Oh, I feel bad for her because I thought, I'm not there. And then as the train pulls off, I see my supervisor, Jim, standing there. I thought, what is Jim just standing there? Usually I'm used to him with his sports coat on and always with his briefcase. He didn't have any of that, but he just stood there. Actually stood there like a statue. I thought that's strange. And as we pull off, we go further, and I got off the blue line into the orange line. I noticed something weird. I noticed there were a lot of fathers with their children. Normally, you would see mothers with their children at the end of the school day on the subway, but you wouldn't see necessarily a lot of fathers. I saw a lot of fathers with their shirt and ties and with their kids, and their kids were quiet. That's another thing I wasn't used to in the subway. I'm thinking this is strange. So I did the transfer, orange line, everything. I got off and I just thought, oh, I don't want to be alone. Even though I still thought I had it together. I don't want to be alone. When I walked off the platform down the escalator, who was waiting there? Buddy Vaughn. She worked in a dental office in a federal building, and they closed her building. So she was off for the day. She came to get me. And I hugged her. I was like, wow, Yvonne, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Still, I'm thinking I'm okay. So we leave my car at the metro station. I said, I'll come back and get it the next day. She took me home, and maybe about 5 minutes before I arrived home, I noticed the smell. I noticed someone was barbecuing, and I thought, why would someone barbecue? It's a little around maybe 12:10 p.m. Very strange. Why would someone barbecue in the middle of the day on a Tuesday? That smell has stayed in my mind. Now, I'm someone who loves to barbecue, whatever, steak, salmon, shrimp, burgers, whatever it is. But when I'm out and about and I can smell someone barbecuing, the majority of the time, it takes me back to 9/11. So I'm at home, and one of my other best friend, Joan, was there, and she had the TV on about 9/11. I just thought, oh, I can't take it. I didn't want anything to do with the television, because I just felt the pressure. I can't explain it, but I felt the pressure of the day. So I went to the living room, and I just cowered down into the corner of the living room into a fetal position. And I began to rock back and forth, and I cried like a baby. I have never done that before. And friends try to console me. I was like, no, I didn't want anybody to touch me. And then after a while, it felt like I was down there for half an hour. Probably it was a minute or two. I walked upstairs to my bedroom. Then I received calls from friends and family. And still, I thought, that's a one-time thing. Me down there in that little fetal position. I was fine. They said, Carla, how you doing? I say, yeah, it was horrible. I was trampled. I played it off thinking I was okay. And right after that, after I spoke to a few family and friends, I sat up against the wall in my bedroom, and I returned to the fetal position. And I did the same thing. I cried and I rocked back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Then I got up. I could still hear the TV talking about 9/11 and all, and everything that happened, and not only Pentagon but New York, and the plane over Pennsylvania. I couldn't take it, so I closed the door, and I stayed in my room. And I just thought, what have I been through? But it'll be okay. I'm going to shrug it off. It's going to be okay. I did some things in my bedroom, didn't turn on the television, nothing. And then in the evening time, Wes called. Wes, the senior executive. He called. He said, Carla, how you doing? I said, I'm doing okay, Wes. How are you doing? He said, well, could have been better. I thought, no kidding. He said, I'm calling to do a roll call. Everything in me dropped. I mean, today, just to hear that. Because I did not know that people at the Pentagon, pardon me, I didn't know the people perished. He said, you're the last one. He said, we've had no fatalities within our FMB3. And I was thankful for that, but which meant there were fatalities. And he said, I'll let you know where we need to meet. Because, of course, we can't return to the office tomorrow. Someone will contact you. I said, okay. Someone did contact me, and they said, we're going to go to Crystal City. And pardon me, I'm getting over a cold. Excuse me. They said, we're going to go to Crystal City, and we're going to meet. We're going to have an organizational meeting. And I believe it was 8:30 or 9 o'clock. Can't remember the time. And they had an admiral there. They had our admiral there. They had another admiral. They had a Catholic priest there. And they had a therapist. And they offered, if you wanted to spend some time, gain some mental health, or however they presented it, with the admiral, excuse me, with the Catholic priest. And I'm thinking, I'm not Catholic. With the therapist. I thought, I'm not crazy. I don't need a therapist. Actually, I felt offended. Excuse me. Why would I need a therapist? I'm still thinking I'm okay. My boss, Jim, who I saw on the platform, he said, Carla, can you come into my office for a second? I said, sure. I'm like, what's Jim talking about? He said, can you have a seat? I said, sure. He said, can you tell me what happened on 9/11? I said, Jim, you were there. He said, yeah, but my wife asked me to ask you to tell me what happened on 9/11. I said, Jim, you don't remember? He said, no, I don't remember that day at all. So I told him all about me walking to him to say, Jim, I'm out of here for the day. He said, oh, you were being a good employee. I said, yeah, because I'm letting you know I'm out. I told him all about the trampoline, everything about seeing him on the metro platform. He said, at the end of me sharing everything, he said, thank you. I'll let my wife know. It's amazing how you go through tragedy and people take it different ways. Whereas I remember everything. He lost total memory of the day. This was a computer analyst. He lost total memory. So as the days went on, I did not want to talk about it. Every time my friends brought it up, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to watch it on TV, and I did not watch it on TV. I just thought, this is just horrible, and I'm still flicking it off. You know, this is just something that I'm eventually going to get over. But as the years went on, I said, you know what? This is just me. This is the way that I'm handling it. There's nothing wrong with me. So around 2005, my friends, along with my two brothers, we decided to spend the day in New York City. And as we drove into New York City, they had a big banner that said, never forget. Everything in me just dropped. I didn't want to talk about it. I just thought, look, I didn't come up here to have to relive 9/11 again. I already relived it on that day, but to now see it, a big sign, never forget. So I told him, I said, look, I don't have any problem walking around, but once we get to ground zero or anywhere close to it, I'm gone. And that's exactly what happened. I told them that the sign said ground zero and it pointed. I said to my family and friends, I'll see you guys. And I walked over someplace else and I got some pizza. And then they came back. They eventually found me. And I said, how was it? And they didn't share that much, which I'm glad they didn't. But I never knew after all that time that I was going through trauma. I had no idea. My ego was so big, I don't need a therapist. I'll be okay. Oh, I'm okay. And I thought, I said, look, I'm a Christian. I'm a believer in Jesus. Why do I need to go to a therapist to talk about my mind? But yet, I'm also someone who follows up with a doctor. Something happens, I go to the doctor. I get my eyes examined on an annual basis. I'm there every 6 months with the dentist. I mean, I'm just regular. But never once thought about taking care of my mind. Actually, I found it offensive. Took me like 7 or 8 years to get over this. And then the 10-year anniversary, 2011, I started to watch all of these, the broadcasts, all the different segments, the television shows, whatever they're called. I became obsessed with them. And I'm talking to my mom on the phone. I said, Mom, they're showing brand new footage of 9/11. And so I'm sharing it with her. And she said, no, Carla, that's not new. She said, they showed that the week of 9/11. I said, no, Mom, this is new information. I said, new footage. I've never seen this before. And I've said this to her 3 different times. And I'm sharing the different types of segments that they're showing on television. And she said, look, baby, no. She said, no. This is new to you. It is not new to everyone else. I felt like I had missed 10 years because I was so consumed with it. I thought it was all new. I thought, wow. And as I look back on it, while it was a tragic day, in my own personal leadership, I look back on that and the only thing I would have changed is that I would have sought therapy. I had my ego big and wide sitting on my head, but I didn't humble myself to seek therapy. I should have said, you know what? Look at everything that's transpired. Look at how I conducted myself. Even going back to my hands shaking in a fetal position in the living room, in a fetal position in my bedroom. Oh, I can't see the thought of hearing anything about 9/11 that day, that week, that month, the following months, and the following years. I couldn't take anything. Ground zero, I don't want to be anywhere near it. That's where my personal leadership failed. Again, I will say this again. I should have humbled myself and I should have sought therapy. So why am I sharing my story? Well, because it's my story to share, and today is 9/11. The other reason I was encouraged by a colleague a few years ago named Andrew, he said, Carla, you need to share your story. And then the final reason It's because if you have trauma, seek therapy. Please don't have this egotistical mindset that you don't need help. Feel free to seek out therapy. They're wonderful therapists, pardon me, that are there for you. And sometimes, in order to get the right therapist, you may need one or two. You may need to go through one or two. I'm sorry, folks. This is at the end of a cold. But seek therapy. It took me years to get over that. And you don't have to go through that. You don't have to take years to get over a situation as traumatic as that. Please seek therapy. And to end it all, thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. And I would say on September 11th, never forget. Never forget the lives that were lost. These are the lives in New York City, all the families that were in New Jersey. These are the lives that were on the plane and at the Pentagon. Never forget.